Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Marion O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. And look, man, I'm starting to think that the mainstream media hates everyone
You're starting to think
except
that
except for themselves.
themselves. Okay, yeah, but
Yeah.
just starting to think that, Tim. This is a new
No,
development. Like, what did you think
no,
before?
not just starting to think it, but I thought it would be a nice way to introduce my conspiracy mindset for today.
I keep forgetting to make the foil hat. Dang it!
I know, but
Dang it! Every
one of
time
these times, I mean, I made the MK Ultra koozie. Well, my
you
wife
did.
made it.
I gotta
Tinfoil
get
hat
some
would go nicely.
conspiracy gear.
Yeah.
Which I do have a conspiracy theory related bit of fake news.
Oh,
We'll,
cool.
yeah, so we'll see what it is. And do have a comment already from Patricia on YouTube. Says, doesn't all news seem or feel fake? Yeah. Well, if it does, especially one of the things that I'm going to mention, just
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Patricia. Like it's all a psyop. It's all out there. It's literally just there to manipulate us, into craziness.
I thought that got defunded, Tim.
What's that?
I thought that got defunded.
Oh, no, slightly defunded. We only lost a couple thousand journalists. That Operation Mockingbird just had to cut back. They have to fund Ukraine and Israel, Kevin. There's only so much that Pentagon can handle.
Yeah. So, all right, which we are going to talk about some of that too. Have some updates on the immigration bill and some of the stuff that's tied to, and we'll talk about the politics of it in addition to the substance, because I want to talk about the substance of it.
Sure.
And then a few other stories that Tim had found that maybe are a little bit more under the radar that we want to talk about too.
Yeah, there's some good stuff out there. There's some interesting things. There's a carryover from something I wanted to talk about a couple weeks ago, closer to when it came out. But it'll be a fun conversation for us.
Yeah, 100%. So, with that in mind, we're going to get started in just a second. As always, folks listening out there, if you have ideas of things that we should talk about or comments on the stories that we are talking about, make sure you throw out your opinion. We appreciate seeing it, and if it's good, we'll put it out on the air too. Maybe we'll read it sometimes on the radio show, sometimes during the breaks. You know how it goes. All right, we're going to head in 5, 4, 3.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Marion O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. How are you?
Oh, living the dream, Tim. Living the dream.
All right. That's all we can do, really.
That's all we can do, man.
One foot in front of the other.
That's right. Just keep going and do what we can to try to live healthy, productive lives, despite government sometimes getting in the way of that.
Yeah, sometimes. And I'll be honest, like I hate the government, I hate the virtue signaling, I hate the culture that I hate the identity politics. I'm still grateful. Like at some level, you hear stories about growing up as a Christian in Lebanon, and then you hear stories about, Northern Africa during a famine, and it's like, you know what, like. And even where we're at, even with the identity politics pushed to overload, to mind-numbing argumentation amongst people, America is still okay, bro. It's still okay.
It's not a bad place. Overall, very good. I think that both you and I we kind of maintain that, like just a little bit of civic nationalism.
I definitely do.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable criticizing a lot of the things I see and the absolute idiocy of our purported ruling class, our elected servants, our overpaid do-nothings, our overpaid loudmouths. Like, okay.
Yeah.
But
Well, hey, listen, this calls a show to do better, not just complain about like why everything stinks. And there's a lot of stuff out there that stinks. We get it.
Yeah.
But there's some good stuff happening too. Although that is not necessarily the topic of this show.
No.
But
No,
yeah,
definitely
we have so we want to talk about a few different things today. We're going to talk about the immigration bill, some stuff going on with that, and the whole like package of bills that's with it, and then a few stories that maybe are a little bit older and under the radar, but we want to discuss. And then we have a fake news segment. We haven't done one of those in a little while now, so I'm excited to do some fake news again.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We definitely haven't done it in a while, and I am looking forward to it. I found a good one. Hopefully we didn't overlap.
We'll see. I mean, there's definitely a pretty solid one out there that is worth talking about. We'll see if we end up on the same one. But I have a couple, so we can keep that segment going. But let's talk about the immigration bill. What's going on with that? And of course, the immigration bill is also like there's like a version of it that's tied to aid to Israel and Ukraine, and some of that is like machinations of Democrats. It's Republicans who are trying to negotiate different stuff in there, like to but the idea is that there's supposed to be some sort of immigration reform happening to deal with the crisis on the border. And they thought they could get a package, like leadership in the legislature thought they could get a package passed by tying all that stuff to popular aid packages like Ukraine and Israel.
Look, here's a reality, and before we even get into the details of the bill, immigration is a hot button issue and has been. Guys, I'm kind of old. It has literally been a hot button issue forever. People have manipulated each other. Our government has manipulated us over it for generations. Okay. In the 70s, it started. Reagan did a big move in the 80s, and we never came to the final agreements. And so now here we are.
Well, to be fair, immigration's been a thing throughout the entirety of American history. It's always been a contentious issue. So.
Right, but we were more open-minded about it when we had vast tracts of land to settle and we were developing communities. Like, we were definitely not anti-immigration back then, and certainly we didn't have computers.
There were anti-immigrant folks. That's where the Know Nothings came from. It was a whole thing. They wanted to expel the Irish, and to be fair, New York City was getting way more people every day than we are now. Like, more people, not as a percentage of a population, but I mean more people as in raw numbers.
Right. Okay, I get the time frame you're talking about.
Structure to deal with. But like Irish, Italian immigrants, like folks from like Central and Western Europe, and Eastern Europe later. There's a lot of folks coming in, like, and it's always been the case. And even going back to the revolutionary times too, like, even though at the time to like settle this land and like, hold territory and get
White Indians.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically that's kind of
like, let's be real, right?
It's in the Declaration of Independence. Like they felt that people should be able to come in more easily, so they had bodies to fight the natives. That was part of it. So immigration has an interesting history.
Yeah, well, my Irish and Italian ancestors, I thank you for whatever it was that you put up with, the sacrifices you made, the shoddy boats that you rode in to get here, and the escaping from the oppression of the evil British. Like, thank you. Just thank you.
And right. And my various aspects of my family, came over from like it wasn't really Germany at the time because Germany wasn't a thing, but like from over there, from Poland. Some were supposedly native, some were English. Don't really know, but so it is. And I want to get this comment already because we're already getting a response to this. John on YouTube says legal immigration, big difference. I mean, the thing is, like, what back then, like, there's less process and paperwork, right? Like, yeah, they're all like legal in the sense that there are very few laws associated with immigration. You just kind of like show up and declare yourself, and good luck. You know,
Be like, hey, I'm here. I'm gonna give me a card. I'm gonna read some stuff. I'm gonna take a test in a year or two. Let's see how
Yeah.
this works out.
Right. Whereas now, even if you fill out all the paperwork correctly and spend thousands of dollars, you still might not get to stay in legally.
I do once again want to criticize the system for making it a multi-trillion-dollar a year. Well, multi-trillion. I may be exaggerating, but it's a multi-billion, hundreds of billions of dollars that go to the immigration lawyer system. It's an amazing boon for trial lawyers and immigration lawyers. They make so much money off of it.
So no, it's a thing, right? Like we've created a Byzantine process that's really tough to deal with. And actually, if I can find it, I'll share a link. There's a link that someone made for like the immigration game where you try to pick a scenario and see if you can like legally get into the country, and see if you can get permanent residence or citizenship.
That sounds like fun.
I failed it a lot. So you have like a limited amount of money, and you know, like you set different circumstances. Like, are you a student? Are you someone with an advanced degree? Are you someone with like just a skilled labor job or unskilled labor job? You know, so in what country are you from, and all this stuff. So it's an interesting way to look at it. But anyway, we should talk about like this bill, which does get to some of that. So like, you know, as we kind of mentioned, like there is that problem of like the paperwork's kind of Byzantine, and there's a situation where like almost the easiest way to get in isn't to follow the process that's set out legally, because that process is expensive and it takes years, and it still might not work even if you spend a bunch of money doing it. So
and that's like the area, Kevin, if I may interject again, that's the area where the immigration lawyers make big money. I had a buddy here from Russia on a student visa, was working in a diner. Thousands and thousands of dollars he paid this guy. The guy would never even show up for court. It was just amazing. Just amazing.
Wow. That's nuts. And so like, okay, so because of that though, what ends up happening is that a bunch of people will say, okay, I'm going to go try to get in through the asylum system, right? Because I don't have the money or the time, or I feel unsafe trying to like follow the normal like process of getting a visa for the intention of moving somewhere. So they say, I'll roll the dice. Maybe they legitimately are unsafe. And some of them, like you're fleeing Venezuela or something. Yeah, you might be unsafe. That government is terrible. No one wants to live under communism. And so you just like, you show up here and you say, okay, I'm seeking asylum, right? And that's where you see like why people are like crossing the border, right? That's why people are like trying to push their way through razor wire fences, because they're like, well, this is my best shot. Because as you mentioned at the beginning of this show, America is still a pretty great place. That's why people want to come here, right? Like people know it's a good place. There's a lot of problems, but we still have the most freedom. Or at least a lot of freedom relative to other people. So people try to come here, right? And then, okay, you're able to do that because, you know, we have processes for accepting refugees and asylum seekers. And then, you know, you get put into the system. Okay. So what do you do with those folks in the system? You can either hold them until their trial date, which means like holding people in camps, essentially. Which that was all the stuff that when you saw kids in cages under Trump, that's what that was. Or you can say, okay, we're going to release you, and then you can show up at this date and we'll determine if we accept your asylum status. Right.
Correct.
And so that's how you end up with people who are like here on asylum status, who are just like kind of hanging out, and then they get bused in New York City and like all that stuff. Like that's kind of why that's happening.
Yeah, and look, they can't get jobs. It's a weird kind of quasi status. It's to me, some of the statuses conferred upon legal immigrants, especially asylum seekers, which are legal immigrants. There's a bizarre thing. They can't get jobs. They can't go to work.
And for better or worse, Kathy Hochul's like, well, we're going to open up some unfilled state jobs to those folks.
Okay, that's
We just
worse, but okay,
yeah.
great.
Well, I mean, like to me, like it's like things like lifeguards, or like clerks and things like that. And to me, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I guess like basically they're allowed to apply, and the state will like employ them if they are qualified, right? Um,
Yeah,
which to me is fine, but like it would be better if the federal government took it a step further and it's just like, yeah, if you're allowed to work as much as you want until your hearing, right? If you go to your hearing and like you're getting deported, okay, yeah, like you can't legally work anymore, and that's a whole other set of issues. But yeah, you should be able to work doing whatever you want,
yeah.
until like your status is determined. I don't see a reason why we shouldn't do that. Because there's a lot of jobs where like if someone's willing to hire you and you're willing to work, then why not? Why should the government get in the way of that?
Yep.
Um,
I'm with you there. I noticed in the immigration bill, Kevin, and perhaps you'll comment on this. There's going to be a massive expansion, theoretically, because the bill's not going to pass, but
yeah, probably not.
of the visa program, which in a
Yep.
way has had the tendency of turning legal migrants into illegal immigrants at the drop of a hat, at the whim of an employer. And to me, it's always been like somehow should be fixed to be more equitable to the people that immigrate here on a visa.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, because sometimes, yeah, if you like lose your job or your job stinks and you just want a new one, like it can be a nightmare to
Yeah.
like try to adjust to that situation. Or if you just get fired because your company laid you off or whatever, right? Like you should have there should be more flexibility in being able to adjust to that. And it's 50,000 additional employment and family-based visas per year for 5 years. It's going to up that up. There's also the what they're calling documented dreamers. Put that in quotes. It's like the dreamers who are like the children of immigrants who are here. Dreamers usually refers to like children of illegal immigrants. This is people who are here on visas and then had kids, and then those kids are kind of on like you know they're on a family basis but aren't permanent residents. So it creates an easier path supposedly to allow them to stay in the country after they turn 21.
Right.
So that's an interesting one. There's also one where all the Afghanistan refugees who came over, they're going to do something more permanent with them and try to do create additional ways to vet people who are still seeking refugee status from Afghanistan. So the people who work with U.S. government and contractors in Afghanistan. Which generally I think that's good. And then they're going to make it harder for asylum. Is the other change the other big change of this, which is basically like what the situation we had talked about earlier. They're trying to expedite claims, which may or may not work out. Like maybe it's a good thing and people get their yes or no answer soon. Immigration groups are kind of worried like maybe they'll just like kick everyone out, and I'm sure there's some folks who are against immigration who are going to say, yeah, that seems like a good thing. But for other folks, like, yeah, my worry is what ends up happening is that these folks will get here, they'll get a no, and they're going to get more people who are just going to be like, well, forget it, I'm not going through the system at all then. That's what I think will happen, because we see that in black markets all the time. We see that with guns, we see it with drugs, and like you make it too difficult, like some people are still going to find a way, right? And then it becomes harder to distinguish the people who are doing that because they're desperate to get out of a situation and the people who are doing that because they're trying to avoid the law for other reasons, because they're actually hurting people or stealing or selling drugs or whatever.
Yeah, and look, I think a broken immigration system, when we have plenty of legal ways to migrate here, definitely lends itself to participation in black markets, especially if they can't get jobs, Kevin.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Right. Getting like the solution to that, like if you want less illegal immigration, like sometimes like, all right, just like make the processes for doing it legally, like just a little bit simpler and let people work. They make it a little bit simpler for that. And then one other thing I want to mention about this bill, which is that the president can also shut down the border, right? When numbers overwhelm the system. So if they get 5,000 encounters over a week or 8,500 encounters in a single day, then the Department of Homeland Security, the president can shut down the border and then just basically like get a special expulsion power to just like kind of kick everyone out quickly. Which is interesting. And then this is why a lot of Republicans are saying this is an open borders bill, which to me, on the more pro-immigrant side, I'm like, this is not at all open borders. Like, it's not like it throws a bunch of money at trying to enforce the Customs and Border Patrol. It throws a bunch of money at trying to get more judges in to process immigration claims quicker. And it doesn't really like increase immigration all that much. Like 50,000 sounds like a lot, but like over the United States over a course of a year is really not a ton.
Right.
So to me, I'm like, I don't know. It seems like almost a conservative bill to me. Open borders seems a bit of a stretch.
I've got like this notion of incentivizing immigration is not really a benefit. Criminalizing people that are here legally, like with the visa program, is also wrong. Like we're getting the whole system wrong. Then we're trading in xenophobia and trading in like false narratives to play identity politics. Like everything we do about immigration is freaking wrong. Like that's the problem. That's they're not fixing any of that, right? They're dealing with the system the way that they have it and making it worse. They're continuing with what looks to be an incentivized immigration plan, bringing people here that can't work. It doesn't make sense, Kevin. Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. And Tim, it's interesting because like you and I have talked about like whether or not politicians refuse to fix this system because there is incentive for this to remain broken for Democrats and Republicans to raise money off of it too, right? Like there's no incentive to fix this because then they can't talk about something. And I've seen a bit more of that. Like there's just, rumors about like Mitch McConnell and this Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, like them, well, maybe we don't want to fix this because then it remains an issue for Trump. And Democrats do the same thing, right? They say like, well,
absolutely.
Right. Like, well, if we can't like virtue signal, if we can't say like we love and respect immigrants and we have the Trump who hates immigrants and we're going to take him down, like you have an opportunity to do something about it. I don't like fully agree with this, but you have an opportunity to like make a bit of progress here for both Republicans and Democrats, a compromise. Like, again, I don't like spending more money. It's not exactly what I would do, but like from like a what they say they want to do, what Republicans and Democrats say they want to do perspective, like it seems weird that this bill is gonna die.
Well, it in part is gonna die because they tied funding, like they're lazy, right?
Right.
And irresponsible.
The funding, which we should talk about, but you know what? I just realized we're running out of time for this segment, so we're gonna have to talk about it next segment. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
They're all in the dark tetrad of personality disorders, these politicians. I've been listening to Jordan Peterson a little bit. They're all narcissists, all of them.
It might be. There's some who are just don't seem to really care about the consequences of their actions and how they impact other people. It's about them, and that's very unfortunate.
Like a deliberate incoherence to make sure that if I don't know, it's a deliberate incoherence to acquire power for themselves.
Yeah. But listen, it is funny. I've been seeing like a lot more Democrats specifically have been pushing that lately, of the like, oh, the Republicans are now refusing to do anything about this for cynical reasons. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right, but also the Democratic Party is not any better on this. They're really not.
It's so funny. Like it like So the big thing on Twitter, Kevin, is that Trump is behind the 47 Democrats and the rest of the Republicans that all decided that this bill may not be any good. I think that's where we're at. We're at it may not be any good.
Yeah.
And so Trump's behind it. He's manipulating all of the decisions, and that's the news on Twitter. It's like
it's Trump pulling the strings, and like this is going to hurt his reelection chances if they fix the immigration issue. And I mean, I don't know that this actually would fix the immigration issue, but
no, it's not going to. It exacerbates certain pieces of the problem. It expands the already what I would call inappropriate visa program. The visa program could be a lot better. It could be a lot simpler. It could be a lot nicer to human beings coming here who obviously already pre-find a job, right? That, okay, you came here, you have a job, great. We can't just kick you out now because you came here because you had a job. Like, we can't just illegalize you when you came here legally because you had a job. Like, that's crazy talk, all right? Like, I'm nowhere near as like, I'm sympathetic to people that are concerned about immigration. Like, I'm sympathetic to the notion that it's an incentivized system, that it's taking advantage of our limited resources in the welfare system. I'm sympathetic to all of those things, but I'm also sympathetic to human beings, especially if they just came here to work. Like, I'm really sympathetic to them. More sympathetic.
Again, people who work, they follow the rules, they try to do everything right, which is no easy feat, and still the system screws them.
Yeah, you have to be crazy. You have to be a heartless jerk. Like, we're not on the radio part, right? Because I was about to swear. All right. You have to be a heartless jerk off to not see the problems with the visa system and illegalizing somebody after they've been here working for years, right? Like, you can't, like, I still get Texas is concerned. I still get a lot of people coming over all at once. Like, I get those.
Well, and like I said, like, you and I think agree, like, the government caused that problem, right? Like, it doesn't have to be this way, but Democrats and Republicans work together to make the system as dumb as possible. So then, like, chaos is inevitable. Like, it doesn't have to be that way.
I like the way you said that. Chaos is inevitable with the way they're managing this system. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And instead of like, okay, like, let's find some like legal paths for people to go and, figure this stuff out. It's just like the war on drugs to me. It's like, okay, like, what are we going to do? We're going to pursue the war on drugs harder, just like we're going to now pursue, like, immigration enforcement harder. Like, no, just if you just give pathways for people to go and they understand what it means without like making the most like straightforward and understandable pathway, like just run in and claim asylum. Like, yeah, you do that, people are that's what they're going to do. It seems like the most straightforward option. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. It's so weird. It's so weird. Oh my, yes.
Steve on Facebook, psychopath's gonna psycho. Yeah, talking about the politicians earlier.
Yep. Consistent. They're remarkably consistent.
Yeah. And but yeah, no, it's probably not going to go anywhere because our government is incapable of doing anything. So,
well, yeah, let's go back to the show and talk about one of the big reasons why they're virtue signaling that it's not going anywhere. Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, no, we'll go back in just a few seconds and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about whether or not it's going to go anywhere and the other aspects of the bill, because there's some additional baggage associated with this.
Yeah.
Let's go back in 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. And last segment, we were talking about the immigration bill, and we didn't really get to one of the things that I think drives both of us crazy. We touched on it. We pointed at it. Like, the preponderance of the $118 billion proposed for the immigration bill, most of that money is not actually going to effectively change the system at the border or improve any piece of this. Most of the shocked face, guys, if you guys on WYSL should join our show once in a while, because Kevin just made the shocked face. Like, 60 or 70 billion dollars of this border security bill is to dedicate funding for Ukraine and Israel. And
Oh no,
it's
no,
like,
no, yeah, 660 specifically for Ukraine and 14 billion for Israel.
so 74 billion of the 118 billion border security bill is going to foreign interests. Now, should those things be debated? Should we still continue to support Ukraine? Should we still continue to support Israel? Should those things be debated as standalone bills by people who are not lazy and interested in world security and America's role in it? Should that be debated on the floor of the House? That's their freaking job, Kevin. That's
Yeah.
their freaking job.
That's what they're supposed to do. That's what we're supposedly paying them for. You know,
Supposedly, yeah, allegedly, these guys are
yeah.
jokers and clowns and frauds, every last one of them.
Yeah,
Except for
right. Like
Thomas
if
Grant.
it's a good idea, instead of like, okay, now we're all talking about whether or not you support the immigration bill. Yes, no on that. Like, okay, what about this other $74 billion? Like that is worth having its own discussion, right? Like
Yeah,
again, like whether you're for or against that, whether you think it's worth funding Ukraine at that level or Israel at that level, which like to be fair to them too, like to the folks over in Ukraine and Israel, maybe less Israel, but definitely Ukraine, like they need the plan. They need a yes or no on that too. Like, okay, like so let's debate it. We'll do it. And you know, I get it, right? Like, so that puts everyone in a difficult position. It makes our country look like morons,
yeah,
because we're tying it to this other thing, and we don't have an actual debate on this bill because this is what we always do. We just pack these things together into stupid omnibus packages because we do that with the entirety of the budget as well. And then like no one gets to have the actual discussion because remember, there's also no floor amendments anymore. There's no like breaking out bills into separate parts. There's every single vote that ends up happening ends up being like tightly controlled. So like the House speakers and party leadership do not allow votes to get to the floor unless they already know the outcome.
yeah, yeah. So look, I had this thought. Our friend John on from YouTube. Follow the money. Corporate donors want cheap labor, and the homeless is inconsequential to them. I'm going to go with. I saw follow the money, and that's what grabbed me. I feel as though every bill like this is a like negotiation for campaign donations. That's how cynical I've gotten, Kevin.
Yeah.
Is that I am?
Well, yeah. Well, I know that's how it is. Like, you know, I understand that. I think that's fair. You know, there's also like an element of like, we're trying to do the right thing here, and you know, again, I think most people are trying to do that, but like, still, like, there's no reason to combine all these things into one. It's you
Yeah.
know, and it goes into that like beyond incompetence. It's just like there's no reason to do it. Like it's cynical to try to tie these together in the hope that like you'll get it because like Republicans won't vote against aid to Israel, right?
Yeah.
That's because that's why they're doing that. Oh, we'll tie this together so like they have to vote for this bill on aid to Israel. No, just split it out. Like let's discuss that. Does Israel actually need our aid in this situation? You know,
Right. Do they? And look, we've beaten this dead horse. We've got other exciting issues to talk about. It's not a dead horse. It's perennially a subject you and I will be talking about for show upon show. So where should we head next, Kevin? The closing of the pharmacies all over the country?
yeah, we could do that.
All right. So basically, I ran across an issue whereby a number of CVS stores, Walgreens, and Rite Aids are closing. They're closing thousands and thousands and thousands of stores. The competition has gotten tougher. Amazon has stepped into this marketplace. Walmart has stepped into this marketplace. But what we now have is Anaya Presley, the House representative for the Boston area, the 7th district in Massachusetts, is freaking out because a Walgreens is closing in one of the Rockford neighborhood, an area where she represents. And
Mhm.
I want to talk about the economic realities of what is going on with pharmacies and whether her virtue is misplaced. And let me quote her just so you get a full taste of where she's coming from. Baby formula, diapers, asthma inhalers, life-saving medications, and jobs. When a pharmacy leaves a neighborhood, they disrupt the entire community. Walgreens must not abandon Roxbury and work with us to address the impact of the closure of their Warren Street location. So Walgreens is closing 2 locations in one of the areas where she represents, and she wants it to be about Walgreens is racist, Kevin.
Yeah, I've seen that like happen in other places too, because it happened when like a Walmart closed in Chicago too, basically the same accusation. And they're like, oh, like they must be closing because they don't want to serve these communities. And it happens in Rochester too. There's accusations of like Wegmans used to have like more locations like kind of in the city. And they currently only have 1 location in the city on East Ave, and people are like, oh, Wegmans must be racist.
Right.
Instead of like, well, maybe they can't make a store work in like that neighborhood, and they pick places along major highway routes that people can easily drive or ride a bus to, and that's fine for them. But like a lot of these like pharmacies are closing though, like to your point, for a bunch of complicated reasons. Like it's
Sure.
not just too many black people are benefiting from our pharmacy. We've got to just close the doors because we don't like that, right? But
Yeah.
it's, I said, competition. It's people can go to Walmart and they buy the groceries and they buy the stuff they would buy at a pharmacy and it's all there, or they can order off of Amazon, which is like usually what I do too. Like if I need something I'd get from a pharmacy in a lot of cases, like unless I need something like right now, then I'll run to the CVS down the road. But if not, I'll order it on Amazon and I'll get it the next day. Right. And it's probably going to be cheaper and I don't have to go out.
Look, I've got a way to blame the government response to COVID. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I was waiting for it. Like, all right, let's talk about how the government is causing this.
So look, when I used to go to my Walgreens more regularly to pick up my prescriptions, I was very comfortable walking inside, but picking up a few things that I needed at a substantially higher cost than I could get them at a Walmart or even my local grocery store. Okay, so I'd go in, I'd pick up a prescription, and perhaps pick up some overpriced milk, an overpriced bag of pretzels, and some overpriced skincare product. Okay, as a response to the inflationary environment created by both Donald J. Trump and Joe Biden and the modern monetary theory used it in response to COVID, I don't have the money to participate in buying the extra goods that I might buy at a Walgreens or a Rite Aid. I go in for my prescriptions now, and that's it. As a matter of fact, I take advantage of the drive-thru. I don't even go inside hardly at all anymore, because I have to budget my money differently than what was available to me pre-COVID, pre-lockdown, pre-inflation bubble. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
Does that work? Can we all blame the government for that?
Tim, we could always blame the government. That's I mean, we'll shoehorn in a way. I mean, and then there are other ways to think about it too. It's just like when like the lockdowns happened and everything too, people were just like not buying as much stuff because they didn't want to like hang around in the area. Either people wanted to do that, like get the delivery of everything too, and that didn't help. So there's a few things that the government was kind of involved in that. And and then it's also like other stuff too. It's not necessarily the government's fault. I mean, I'm sure we could shoehorn it in there too, but like a lot of these pharmacies do have theft issues. It's just that they seem to have gotten hit. For whatever reason, like people seen them as like softer targets than like the bigger box stores, although there's still theft rings that impact those too.
Sure. And theft is an issue, right? In depressed neighborhoods, in economically strapped neighborhoods. So
right. And so it's hard to maintain a store in those places, right? Like if you like, and that was a thing in Rochester, right? So like there's an article I'm looking at from last May. And it was the Rite Aid on Portland Ave is closing in May, and like one of people talked about like, well, a lot of the shelves were empty, everything was locked up when they came in, and shoplifters would take stuff, right? Like yeah, so that's what it is. Like when stuff would get damaged, and it was just like an unpleasant place to shop because you had to ask to unlock everything, and the stuff that wasn't unlocked would get stolen. Like, yeah, it's so like, and it's hard to maintain like profitability when that's what's always happening to your store. People are always taking stuff and you have to like add extra steps to buy goods. Like, yeah, it's not a recipe for success.
I was working in Connecticut, Kevin, and I went to a Walmart. Like, they have the underwear locked up, bro. Like, I'd never seen that before in rural America. Like, this is just outside of a densely populated urban area. They had the underwear locked up. I had to find a sales associate to buy 6 new pairs of underwear. It was amazing to me. And I was doing some shopping at a local Home Depot, and I'm like, hey, you guys got any of these an expensive drill bit, let's call it. It's like a $60, $70 drill bit. And the lady types it in. She's like, it says we got 11, but odds are we don't have any. Like, I'm like, okay. My last trip to Connecticut, I went to that same Home Depot, and the entire circumstances have changed. They have security guards at the door. They have a recording device in the middle of the parking lot with massive lights. It's about, I don't know, the lights go up about 20 feet. They've got cameras coming out of this thing all over the place. Like, they have had to take a stand against they had to take a massive stand against the theft that was going on at this Home Depot.
Yeah. Sorry, and I broke your train of thought, like trying to find this clip from South Park, which is like the underpants gnomes. It says phase 1, collect underpants. Phase 2, ? Phase 3, profit. So
perfect.
That's why they're locking it up, man. That's gotta stop the underpants gnomes.
So, anyways, like, theft is a real thing, and so if, let's just say, how much theft can the Walgreens in, I think it's Rockford, Massachusetts, pass on to Oneonta, New York's Walgreens? Like, at what point will everyone stop shopping at the Oneonta Walgreens because the cost basis for all Walgreens has become too high? They have to counteract loss, period, somehow. And closing the store is a realistic way to do it. And that's a reality.
Yeah, and that stinks, right? And again, there's a lot of like failures on the government's part for that too. Like, in addition to like the government, those communities, and again, like it's Rochester's no stranger to that. Like, and we have to have two pharmacies in the city close. Like, it's been an issue, and it stinks if you live in that neighborhood and you're just like, man, I'm just trying to get my prescriptions and I want to be able to like go there in 3 minutes instead of having to drive out to like a Walmart or Wegmans or whatever, right? Like, I get it, and that stinks that like the people in those neighborhoods suffer because like a handful of jerks can't like do the right thing and not steal stuff, or again, sometimes it's not in their control either. Like, it's not totally fair to blame them. It's also like people just go to Amazon or whatever, or go to other places. It's just changing businesses, and it's not like my guess is that like there's going to be new and interesting ways for people to be able to get prescription drugs. Like, there's more and more ways in which people can get it through the mail. Like, the market's going to respond.
Yeah, logistic plays are the wave of the future, right? Like, that is Walmart is number 2 to Amazon in logistic plays. Like, having massive warehouses. Once they get, like, even Walmart now has pharmacies where they basically give away certain loss leaders. You can get great deals on certain prescription drugs at Walmart because they know you will buy other things while you're there. So, Walmart pharmacy is pretty epic.
Yeah, that's what it is. All right. So on that note, though, we do have to head to a break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Goodness, I keep burping into my microphone. Sorry, folks listening. I'm gonna edit the burps out of the podcast, so hopefully you podcast listeners will not hear any of those.
Kevin, on this subject, I in my travels, and I was going to try to break it down on the radio show, but it's too awkward. Gavin Newsom got caught, like, he was shopping in a store, and he watched a shoplifter walk right out of the store, and he's like, why are you letting that person leave without paying for their goods? Like, he was telling the story. It was literally him on a Zoom conference call, And the cashier said, "Look, we can't stop that guy. That we don't have the right to stop that guy. That's the law in California." And he's like, "That's not actually the law. I don't know what you're talking about. Like
Well,
that can't be the law."
yeah, it isn't the law, but it is a lot of company policy, right? Like, because
Mhm.
there's some confusion about like what the law is in these places. New York is in a somewhat similar situation, but
Sure.
like the law is that like basically like if it's theft under like I think California's like $900, like it's like petty larceny, and like they probably wouldn't hold someone for bail for that, right? And
Right.
so they're just basically going to let them go, appearance ticket type of thing, and that's sort of what happens in New York as well. So there's a lot of that theft increasing, and but the big thing, the reason why employees can't stop people is because the companies don't want you to do it because,
Mhm.
and it actually sort of makes sense, is like if an employee tries to stop some kid from stealing like a box of candy bars and then
Yeah.
injures that kid, it's going to be way more expensive for that company to deal with that than the loss of the candy bars.
I, I want to tell you, going back 30 years, that this has always been an issue. Like a shopkeeper can't just accuse somebody of stealing. And if they do, and they can't really prove it in a court of law, there's a whole can of whoop ass that can get opened up on the issues of defamation. And like judgments can be awarded that would destroy an average shopkeeper, or Walmart's insurance rates would go up. Like it has always been a
Yeah.
tricky gray area.
Yeah. No, it's kind of been a thing for a while. And Steve Beck said the police won't come either for under $900. Yeah. I mean, that's basically if it's petty larceny, but okay, cool. Just like, write it down. We'll file a report. And then you can like file that with insurance if you want.
Yeah, you'd be better off like saying banning that person from coming in your store, and then charging them with trespassing if they come in the store.
Yeah.
Which is still a complicated issue, right?
Yeah, but yeah, that's those are some of the different ways that people deal with it. But usually, like it's not worth it for the stores or the police to go after those folks. And it seems chaotic, right? And like, and you're still a shitty person if you're going in and stealing a bunch of stuff. And that ranges from, I know some people are like, oh, but they're just finding the stuff that they need. Like, not always. Sometimes there's
No.
like someone stealing like 3 entire cartfuls of like Tide. No,
Yeah.
they're reselling that to make money. Sometimes money like to fund like criminal activities too. Like it's a thing. Um,
Yeah.
I've
That
talked to
high
folks
end
who've like
like
explained that to
makeup
me.
place was getting hit all over the country. Like it's just a theft ring making money. You know what I mean? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, but no, it's the
And it's
thing.
not worth looking up. Everybody's heard the story, you know.
No, but no, definitely a problem though. And let's see. One other thing I wanted to jump into quickly, because I want to go back to John's comment quick, which is the
Yeah.
corporation donors want cheap labor. Yeah, John, it's interesting to say that because that actually, like, Bernie Sanders said that. Bernie Sanders said that immigration was a Koch brothers plot. Like, but to me, it's again, if we have a free market in labor, if it's easy for people to come in and make voluntary arrangements with an employer who wants to employ someone and an employee who wants to work, they should be able to do that. Bernie Sanders wants to get in the way of that,
Yeah.
because it in his mind is like, well, we need to artificially keep the labor costs of American workers higher, and we do that by excluding people from that process. Now, it never
Right.
stops with immigrants. It ends up always going to other folks, right? Like, if you start excluding one group from being able to make voluntary labor arrangements, it's not too big of a leap to do others, and that ends up going down some pretty dark roads. Either the right wing version of that, which ends up being racialized, or the left wing version of that, which is like, if you don't toe the party line, you'll never work again.
Yeah, and look, neither party wants a farmer to be able to pay migrant labor cash without the government getting a cut of that money. Like That's a reality. Like they want control even of a guy who's paying some dudes to come pick pumpkins, right? Like he's got a couple $100 cash, he found some dudes. They want a cut of that money, and it's gross. The government is gross. Follow the money right to the government.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And then the other part of John's comments was in the homeless is inconsequential to them. I mean, also yes, but like the big Tim and I have talked about this a ton. Like big ways to fix that: just build more housing, make housing cheaper. There'll be just have an abundance of like housing, and and that too, you know. And just there's opportunities out there to get people in homes, and a lot of times it's the government getting in the way. And I know it sounds convoluted, but like, okay, if we just let people build housing, and yes, some developers are going to profit off of that, but eventually rents will go down, and some people who couldn't afford homes can now get an apartment. Like that's how it's going to work. It's several steps removed, and it's not the government directly helping people, and that blows progressives' minds. But like, if you just let the market work and you let resources go to where they need to go, people will get helped, and someone will profit when this happens too. But that's okay. People will still get helped, and that's great.
As long as it's not like BlackRock's multifaceted government services corporation that makes Halliburton look like kitty, like a kiddie show. Like BlackRock is ready to create whatever the government wants to spend money on. It's just amazing. They morphed from a COVID vaccine distributor into a migrant relocation service just overnight. Like they got the gig, man. Like you can write bills the government will pay, period. Hey, a shout out to Shelly. She did her podcast. Good. Yeah, let me know. I will check it out. I will share it on my Twitter. I'll do whatever, Shelly. That's great. It was, I think, a traumatic brain injury podcast, if I remember correctly. And I'd love to do whatever I can to make that help people watch that.
Yeah, cool. We'll definitely have to check that out. But anyway, I am going to drop an article that I think will be interesting. I want to get into it. BlackRock doesn't own that much of the housing stock. It's really not that much, except for in certain cities. I think we talked about this on another show.
Like a big lever in a urban area.
So because it's sort of like nationwide. They own like equity firms generally own like 2.5% of like the housing or something like that. It's relatively small. But then there'll be like a city, like I think maybe was it Charlotte or Raleigh or something? It was one of the Carolinas.
It was Charlotte. Maybe it was Raleigh, but I think
they own like an absurd number of the houses in like that city. And that city kind of did it to themselves a little bit by making it so difficult to buy housing in such a high demand area that it's now suddenly profitable to just buy a house, do nothing, and flip it. And these companies, like they are. They're what's the word I'm looking for? They are they're like fungus, right? They're just gonna go to where like the thing they can eat is, right? Like that's what it is. They're gonna go where they can make money, right? Like and I'm not like necessarily saying that in a disparaging way to this company. It sounds like it, but like they're going to go where the decay is. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Fungus, just so you know, fungus kind of grows on rotten stuff. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the analogy you were looking for.
Right? Like, so like when they're with equity firms, their entire goal is to make money. If there's a way to mooch off the system, if there's a way to rent seek and there's a way to make a quick buck, they're going to exploit it. Sometimes it ends up being a good thing. Fungus isn't necessarily a bad thing. We want fungus to clear out the forests and stuff, and to make sure that like stuff gets recycled. But also, it's just gonna attract to stuff that's a problem, right? When we have decay, scavengers are gonna come in.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should get back to the main show, and
absolutely
we'll get to our fake news segment, and so hopefully we can keep this going for an entire segment. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna see if I can find. Do I have the fake news? Oh, I do. So we're gonna go back in. There we go. We're gonna go back in 5, It's fake news Thursday evening. That
Thursday
doesn't roll either. Fake news Thursday evening on WYSL. Fake news Tuesday evening on our live stream. But we have some, I think, fun fake news items. Yeah, we haven't done it in a while. It's been a little bit. Tim, do you want to go first? I think we got the same one. We'll see if we have the same one. But Tim, do you want to?
All right, Kevin, as you probably know, it as a part of our World War II effort, Kevin, and this is going to be weird, right? We used what are called carrier pigeons, messenger pigeons, where soldiers who were going in behind enemy lines would be able to, gather intelligence and write a message back to, throw the pigeon in the air, the pigeon flies back to its home base. Certain types of pigeons have this remarkable ability to know where their coop is, regardless of miles traveled, regardless of distance, taken. They can get back to their coop as long as they're not away from it for too long and they don't establish a new coop. But check this out. A pigeon, Kevin, is this real or fake? Like, a pigeon was accused of being a Chinese spy in India.
Pigeon was accused of being a Chinese spy in India. I'm gonna say it's real news.
Kevin, it is in fact 110% real news. They basically, somebody found a pigeon with a tag attached to its feet that had Chinese writing on it, and they captured the pigeon. They held it in custody for about 8 months. I'm here. The way I'm hearing the story, PETA intervened. Some animal rights group intervened. They realized that it was just a racing pigeon, just a basic somebody. You tag your racing pigeons if you have homing pigeons that you want. They have contests with these things just to keep us ready for war in the future when an EMP goes off and we lose all of our communications. So anyways, it's absolutely a true story. Be thankful. Thankfully, everybody, the pigeon has been released. So it's free to go back to its coop or just go be a wild pigeon and live its best life. So good news,
Wow.
everybody. Good news.
Tim, did they check to make sure that the bird was not in fact the drone?
Well, look, being that I'm in the recharging bird type drone business, no one's going to actually ever check that, Kevin, as long as the bird is still moving. Birds are inherently our masters. We haven't realized that yet, but I'm doing what I can to keep them happy.
Just recharging on the birds. Thank you for doing your part.
I have a flock of ravens, Kevin, watching my progress with my latest project. And ravens, I don't know if you guys know this, are like big crows, but cooler. And then the crows come in and fight with the ravens. It's kind of really wild. Like, there's this war going on with big ravens and slightly smaller crows, but they are like, they tear each other's tail feathers out. It's weird, man. Like, they do not like each other. And according to all the fantasy fiction that I've read, ravens are the good guys and crows are the bad guys. So I'm sympathetic to the ravens. And
I didn't know
English.
Well, they can learn English. I mean,
they can speak. Smart. They can imitate words.
Well, I mean, they're pretty smart, Tim.
Yeah.
They can do your bidding if you train them. I'm just saying, they're out there. Like, just start incentivize. Like, I've heard stories, clips from Reddit. So take it for what it is. But
real.
People who's it might be real. People who said hey, start training some crows that showed up in my backyard. Do the crows over the ravens. They're both very smart. And just start giving them bread, and they'll start giving you gifts, right? And then when they start giving you something good, coins or dollar bills, you start giving them nicer treats. And so they realize oh, this is the stuff that my guy really wants, and they'll start going and seeking out more of that. Now, how they get it, I
That's not
don't
my
need to know the
problem.
details. That's not my business.
Yeah, that's not
The
my
point
problem.
is that they bring me things that look like little green squares, rectangles of paper, um,
Oh my
and then
God.
I give them nice bread and seeds and nuts and stuff.
Okay, tomorrow's project is now firmly set in my brain. Besides working, I am
Besides,
going to build a little, I don't know, crow or raven, whichever one really wants the stuff. I don't care.
just
Starting with bread, you think that's a good idea?
yeah, that seems reasonable. I feel like
All right,
birds like bread. I
all
mean,
right.
I don't know. I'm not a bird expert. And I have no idea if you get in trouble if those, crows or ravens, whoever wins out ends up, you know, they end up stealing something to give to you. Not an expert in bird law, just,
Well, I
throwing
mean,
that caveat out there.
honestly, this job has a limited time frame, Kevin. I could do this for the next, let's say month and a half or 2 months. Do you think that's enough time to train them
That,
up?
listen, they remember you, too.
Will they
You
follow
do it
me?
for yeah, like you'll come back like years later and they'll be like, oh, hey man, our buddy's back.
Oh,
Like, yo, let's go get some more dollar bills. Like this.
this is good, Kevin. This is good. I can make this work.
Yeah, and I've always advocated, and for some reason, the good folks at the city of Rochester have never agreed that when we get infested with crows every year downtown, just have them do our bidding, right? Like we can have them. They don't need to go and steal stuff, but like go and give them bread for like picking up cigarette butts or
Oh,
something, right? Like every cigarette butt they bring, here's a walnut, like
all right.
good job, crow.
Yeah.
Instead, we shoot fireworks and lasers and stuff at them. No, that we could be getting them to do our bidding. They could go up and clean up these streets.
I
Um,
honestly,
we should be
I'm
putting them to
gonna be the
work.
bird master now. The
Yeah,
the, the raven guy, the
yeah,
crowmeister.
yeah.
I don't know.
Come on,
I'll figure out a new
you're
name.
gonna have your own murder. It's
Yeah.
it's gonna be great. Like again, this is the outside the box thinking that we bring you here on a free solution is getting crows and ravens to do our bidding. And Shelly throws out. Shelly on YouTube says, "My cat screwed the crow, and we had to rescue the cat." Yeah, crows. Them remembering is both a good and a bad thing. They will also remember if you are mean to them. So
Yeah. I can
uh,
remember a hawk took down a crow right behind my first house, and the entire woods behind my house, like, was crazy with crows cawing at the hawk. Like it was weird, man. It was kind of eerie. Like,
yeah,
did you ever see the Hitchcock movie, The
yeah,
Birds?
yeah. The birds.
It,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
reminded me very much of that. And I had a little child at the time, and I'm like, you know what I'm doing? I'm getting out of here till stuff calms down. That's
That's
it.
fair.
I'm
That's fair.
gone.
That's good instincts. All right, I wanna leave enough time to talk about the item that I want you to judge if this is a real or fake news item. Um, so I'm gonna read you a tweet that's describing this article. It says a Bay Area school struggling to boost low test scores and student attendance is paying $250,000 for an organization called Woke Kindergarten to train teachers to disrupt racism and remove these barriers for learning. Its test scores fell even further. Tim, is this a real story, or is this something that the Babylon Bee came up with?
Honestly, Kevin, we know that there's a problem with the product that public educational systems are offering. I'm going to say that this is a true story.
It is unfortunately a true story. Woke Kindergarten is real, and people really paid money for it. $250,000 at this district to disrupt racism. But turns out disrupting racism is not the same as teaching kids to read.
I mean, imagine that, Kevin. I've got one.
Shocking.
In a similar vein, actually, the entire state of Ohio, the legislature in the state of Ohio, has put a bill into the House in Ohio that would offer to pay students in Ohio for attendance. True story? False story?
I don't know. This is probably misleading in some way. I'm gonna say it's not real.
Well, the way I presented it may or not be accurate, but that is in fact a real story, that they are going to pay for attendance up to $50 a month starting in kindergarten if you attend school more than 90% of the days available.
Yeah, well,
If
we're spending like $40,000 a student. They get a little bit. So students get a bit of kickback from that, and they show up. What would you rather have? Give $50 to a kindergartner or $100K to another admin we don't need?
well, I would choose the third option, which is why we do this show, right? Like, there's got to be another option, Kevin. There's got to be, like, the either or there leaves me unsatisfied. So what I'm saying is, what would be the third option here? Like,
I mean, find ways to make students connect with learning and have them want to go to school to be able to connect the curriculum there with their goals and dreams.
Yeah, a better product. Like,
yeah, better product.
That's a better product. If the public school system came up with a better product that did not serve virtue, that served learning, that served our children, I mean, I think it's a win-win-win-win, like from The Office. Everybody wins,
Yeah.
and I win.
Well, Tim, or we teach kids to be little comrades and teach them about striking, and we ask them tough questions about Palestine, and we ask how are we gonna defund Israel and support the Palestinian people, and then we make a bunch of money off of that.
That sounds like the system we have, Kevin.
The system we have works for the people of woke kindergarten.
I do regularly point out that government schools are failing, which many people rejoin and say, no, Tim, government schools are entirely successful, like at what they want to do. I'm like,
yeah,
that's a painful point, but I accept it.
That's, I mean, I think that is fair and accurate in some cases, like that. There are certain folks for which this system works. And again, some of the administrators, maybe some of the teachers. I'm not that cynical about teachers, but and then these some of these nonprofit groups who are pushing their own curriculum too. But again, at this particular school district where I pulled up that woke kindergarten story, the 4% of the students there are proficient in math. 12% are at grade level in English, and it's going down after they decide what if we just talk about racism all day? And
it's absurd, Kevin. Like, that's absurd.
And I wasn't joking. Like the Palestinian conflict question, that's really the verbatim question is, if the United States defunded the Israeli military, how could this money be used to rebuild Palestine? These are discussion questions with first graders that they're throwing out there.
That sounds like what I would call indoctrination. That sounds like a political agenda being forced on. Well, it can even be argued that it's indoctrination. It's indoctrination. That's
100% of what it is. And so that's why I wanted to bring up that one too, just because the it's so on the nose. It's like the culmination of every worst thing folks on WYSL are thinking about, what school districts are doing, and it is real. In this case,
that's just amazing.
Just legit, straight up woke communist propaganda at a school where the poor kids, again, they're struggling to read. They're struggling to have the basic skills they need to be able to advance in life. It's I want it to be really funny, but also it's not funny for the kids and the families there.
Right.
The teachers don't like it either. The teachers are what are we even doing here?
Well, yeah. Do we got time to talk about the fact that so many smaller private institutions?
Oh, Tim, you kind of froze up on me. I don't know if I froze or you froze, but one of us froze. And we are also out of time anyway. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Appreciate y'all listening, folks. Have a great night, WYSL audience. Take care.
Am I back?
Tim, you're back. Tim,
Woo.
I just ended the show.
I heard. I didn't lose a word of what you said.
Yeah.
I did lose my picture. Now I lost my train of thought as to what I was talking about right as we were getting ready to go.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
froze, but
bros.
am I unfrozen? And he's back. All right. Thank you, Shelly. That's good.
Yep. That happens.
I bought a new router, Kevin. Remember I bought a modem. No, wait. I bought a router thinking that my modem was going bad, but I'm like, all right, all I need is a router. But I never got the modem. But I bought the modem, yet I have not installed it.
Oh,
So
you should do that.
I should that probably wouldn't have happened had I put in the new modem, because the router is like absolutely state of the art. And so now with a new modem, the quality of this broadcast is going to get exponentially better. I think I'll be a better person because my tech junk is more expensive. What do you think about that?
I do think that's true. And you know what you could do if you have like, faster, smoother internet, you can bump up the image quality. Like let's go HD. Let's go 4K, Tim.
No. I'm
Okay,
taking
not
a look
4K.
at
That's
how
too
old
much.
I am and the wrinkles.
Just
that will
HD.
come through.
Come on.
Not doing it. Not doing that.
We're in standard definition now. I could bump it up to
okay, well, I'm going to recommend against that because people have this picture of me in their head that I'm nowhere near as old as I actually am. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, if we lower the quality a bit, you think that's going to smooth it out?
That's what I'm thinking.
Notice.
That's what I'm seeing on my end.
But Tim, you started saying something before the break. Before you froze up on us. What were you saying? You talked about smaller institutions, and you just.
Oh my God! Yeah, small institutions all over the state of New York are failing. They're closing up. They're locking their doors. Cazenovia College, gone.
Yeah,
2023.
I had friends who went there.
Yeah. I think that what they're realizing is that New York State government and the New York State Institutes of Higher Learning have expanded their capacity on the taxpayer dime, and they're massive, and they can no longer compete with what the state is offering. And I think in a way, that's sad, right? The College of St. Rose is closing up. Where some of these smaller universities have an advantage is they can offer vibrant sports and they can specialize in cybersecurity or things of that nature, where state institutions may not be able to meet a private demand. So hopefully they can find a niche and keep it working. Because
I know. I went to Wells College, which is a very, very small college along Cayuga Lake in Aurora, New York. My class was, it was like 120 people. It was not a big class of students. Under 1,000 students still at that college. But it was a nice thing, right? They had had and still have good programs in various areas. They take advantage of the the ecology of the region, plus like just different unique aspects of like rural businesses. And so it's a shame to see these colleges close. And I think you're right in part that, okay, with like New York State, with like SUNY schools, if they have that deal now where you basically get free tuition if you agree to stay in the state for a little bit. That's tough. That's a good deal. Like I went to Wells. It was kind of expensive. I'm still paying off student debt. I've talked about that. I don't regret going there. It was a good experience, but for a lot of folks, that's man, it was already less expensive to go to these places, and now I can go there for basically free, and I get a 4-year degree still, and that puts me in a better position than I was. Okay, yeah, I'll take that and go debt free and just find a way to scrape a living in New York State for a few years.
It is an incentive to keep younger people in the state, which we don't have a lot of incentives. But again, we get to the point of the product is the problem, right? If we look at New York State as a product, small businesses are dying, independent businesses are dying. We have a manufacturing base that the government tries to prop up and fails miserably at. Uh, we chased out Remington Arms. These were like
Yeah.
lifetime generational jobs that paid reasonably well, and the factory closed up, moved to Georgia. The product is the problem, and there's on some level there's no hope of us changing it without a sea change, without people realizing that what we've done to ourselves is in fact the issue. And they to make that change, effectively, they would have to listen to guys like you and me and Larry and people that are putting this out there every day. Our friends in the Libertarian Party of New York that put these thoughts out there, that we're overregulated, that we're overtaxed, that we're overzoned, that freedom has been a failure, that limiting your neighbor's freedom to do things that don't harm you is ridiculous, right? Like, it's a ridiculous concept, and we've got to try to fix it. At least we're
Yeah.
trying, Kevin. At least you and I are trying. At least
Yeah.
lots of other people are trying. But
Exactly.
we're
There's a
meeting
bunch
with
of folks
strong
working very
headwinds.
hard. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's the nice libertarian moment of 10 years ago is, well, yeah, it's gone. And unfortunately, we have to deal with especially in New York State, but Democrats and Republicans are no longer trusting of people, and they think that the way to deal with that is to assert more control, and that control comes through the state. And so that means that every single thing that we do ends up more and more micromanaged by various levels of government. And we'd all be better off if we just kind of let people do their thing.
Yeah. So check it out. Like, I've got this like annoyance. There was a young guy that worked for Otsego County who was very big into, supporting the ban on plastic bags that we talked about last week, where since they've banned those plastic bags, our plastic consumption, at least in this town or area in New Jersey, has gone up 5 times, right? Where we're going to the store and buying way more plastic stuff than we ever did plastic bag stuff. Like, this kid effectively got involved in the recycling program, and he was a nice kid, but like, he left the state because his opportunities here were so limited, and he doesn't realize that his desire to control his neighbors was part of the problem that made the state horrible. And he moved to Virginia, where it's way less regulated, and you can get a plastic bag anywhere. You don't have to pay a nickel for it. Like, they have no deposit laws. It's just so much freer. And a pack of cigarettes is $7 in Virginia. $7, Kevin.
What a world.
I know. I'm out of here, man. If I could just convince my wife to go. When Tiny Tim's out, we're going to Virginia.
There you go. I've heard that from many folks. Some follow through, some don't. But I know.
I'm going right to Richmond. I mean, north of Richmond. I'm going into lobbying.
Going into lobbying.
Tim,
that's a smart career move, I think.
Yeah.
You'll make a great lobbyist. You get that money. Get that bag, Tim.
Get that bag. Get that cash. Pay me.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, why not? Besides all the ethical reasons, why not? But
ethics schmethics, Kevin. We're talking about cash, bro.
Yeah, get paid. All right. Do we have anything else? I don't even know.
I just want to whine like for a minute or two about what I'm seeing as the stated inflation rate and the ignorance that there's been this huge accumulated inflation that is now, like, supposedly, according to Bidenomics, we have the inflation rate back down to a reasonable rate. Like, it's back down to 3%. And
thanks, Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, Krugman is making comments about how Republicans think the economy sucks. And it's like, I get it. Like, that's political, right? But there's a certain amount of reality to the fact that the inflation over the course of the last 3 years has devastated people, and it has changed the size of the packaging in stores. It has changed your everyday stop, and people like I know they're coming out with metrics that are saying that on average or by some dystopian logic, real wages have gone up. And I think that there's a disconnect because this is political activism when they're saying these things, and it does not meet up with reality. And I'm trying to explain it to the best of my ability. Like my coffee jugs are smaller and they're more expensive. Like I used to be able to get a coffee jug that almost is slightly bigger than the one I'm getting now for $7 at my Dollar General. It is now smaller and it's $10. And it's like, so I'm taking the Venezuelan strategy of spending my entire paycheck on things like coffee, laundry detergent, and pasta. I don't know. Like it's an investment strategy, Kevin. You see what I'm saying? Because
Bold
it's going
move.
up again next week.
It's going up. All right. So there you got flip it. That's the key. You know.
I'll have so much of it. I'll be a price gouger on eBay. You know what I mean? I can't wait.
There you go. Well, I mean, so what do you think about this Elizabeth Warren tweet? Then I'm gonna share it because she's kind of on the you sound like her, man. I mean, she's not wrong. She's
no
fewer
she's not
Doritos
wrong.
in your bag, fewer Oreos in your box, less toilet paper on your roll. You aren't imagining it. Big corporations are really making you pay the same amount, sometimes more, for less. It's called shrinkflation, and we've got to crack down on it.
Well,
Tim, should we crack down on it?
Yeah. Like crack down on modern monetary theory and the Bidenomic use of devaluing the dollar to make pretend that economic metrics are real. Okay, like so crack down on it, you psychopath. She's lying. Like she's nuts, right? Yeah. It's sure big corporations.
She doesn't mean get inflation under control, other than like we've got to blame big corporations for inflation,
correct,
and then make it illegal for companies to shrink packaging, I guess.
Look, she's like a socialist lunatic who is a completely made up persona of like she got propped up. She has charisma.
Made up persona. What does that mean?
Well, she certainly benefited from lying about her heritage, right? Like about her genetic heritage. Yeah,
I suppose so. I mean, with her, like unfortunately, I think she's a true believer. Like, you know, that it would be maybe better if she didn't actually believe in all the nonsense that she believes, but like she is, and I know folks who are like Warren supporters too, but because they're the same way. They're like, government needs to do something about all of these problems, and by golly, I'm smart enough to fix it. Like that's what she thinks. Like she thinks she is smart enough to like micromanage the economy and like, oh, here's a problem. Like people are getting less stuff for the same amount of money, because of greedy corporations. Let's just punish the greedy corporations, and then we're gonna solve everything. You know, not understanding like that there might be consequences to whatever micromanaging the size of like packaging offered by corporations, something that I think would probably be impossible to actually manage. Like I don't see how you could actually implement a workable solution here, unless you think outside of her framing, which is corporate greed, and go back to like, oh, hey, corporations are shrinking the size of packaging for the same price because the cost of ingredients have gone up, and the cost of ingredients have gone up because of the inflation caused by the government's monetary policy and other reckless, interventions in the economy.
Right. So her conclusions have always been faulty to me, and so what that suggests to me is that her IQ is not what it would appear to be. Right. Like she comes to conclusions that are narrative driven, not fact based. Okay. So when we face a period of devaluation like we did with Trump and Biden's economic response to COVID, we destroyed the value of the dollar. We're lucky, Kevin, that it isn't worse, that bubbles aren't forming everywhere, right? But also a lot of real people are being hurt by this, and it's a continuation. Like if you like ground beef, if you like beef at all, right, you're paying on an order of 40% more for your beef products from your grocery store. Even my local beef guy, I got a beef guy, but
beef guy.
we're talking his numbers, and I'm happy for him because he like the deals were too good really in the past, but like even his numbers now are almost exponentially higher or substantially higher. You know, we're on the order of 40, like he matched a grocery store 40, 50, 60% higher. You know what I mean? Good for him. I'm still buying from him. It's still a better deal than what I'm getting from the store. But this is real. So when they're saying Americans are making more money now and that real wages have gone up, I think that they're full of shit. I think that they're lying, and I think that we can demonstrate that they're lying because if food and your necessities, your housing and your transportation are 80% of your income, their metrics would allow them to say that your real wages have gone up when in fact you cannot buy anything. Your economic freedom has been contracted.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and I kind of agree with you. And if I were to make like the counter argument, like the best, like if I steel man like the counter argument to this, because I was listening to a podcast talking about it, is basically, well, on the numbers, like that is true, right? Like that on the numbers, like people are making more money in aggregates. They're bringing in more money and they're spending less of it than they were as a share of income than a couple years ago, right, when inflation was at its peak. But
Sure.
people still feel. But the problem is that people still feel the effects of inflation, and that you remember what beef cost in 2019, right?
Yeah.
And that you were upset about that, and like there's not really much we can do other than like to let it smooth itself out, right? Like that's like this is like the Democratic strategists who are like, it'll eventually smooth itself out, and don't worry about inflation, it's not that bad. But people are just gonna be mad for a little while, and they're gonna get over it, right? Which to me,
Sure.
I don't really like that, and I don't think it's true because a lot of people are struggling. Like again, maybe your wages went up, maybe they didn't. Like your situation as an individual like matters. And so like if stuff is happening around you that you can't control, and suddenly like your grocery bill has gone up, but your wages or your salary has not gone up by the same amount or more, then
Yeah.
your situation is personally worse off. And that's why like sometimes like the individual stories of how inflation hurts people gets lost in this aggregate data, right? Again, like on the whole, maybe the economy is better, but the individual family situation, a lot of folks are hurting, and that doesn't always get captured adequately in the economic numbers.
Yeah. So the argument I would make there, or the issue that I would present there, it's not an argument, it's actually an agreement, right? That some of our metrics are propped up by debt, by
Right.
consumer-driven debt, where now there's hundreds of billions of dollars hidden in buy now, pay later. There's over $1 trillion in credit card debt. Like,
yeah, I did see kind of
we're heading for that's where the bubble is, Kevin, that people are borrowing to consume.
I'm trying to remember where I saw it earlier, because to your point, the number of defaults on credit card debt and auto loan debt has gone up in the last couple months, right? Which the auto loan situation, like talk about like a product that was like impacted by inflation during COVID, like the automotive went bonkers for a bit there. And it's
right.
like,
Well, they're trying. I feel as though there's a macro pressure there to try to get cars and trucks and vehicles, individually owned vehicles, so expensive that we do move to a rent lease kind of option. And yes, put on the tinfoil hat, brother. Because
all right, so it's not just the factors of the economy and the weird stuff with COVID. Like, no, they are making this happen
so that they can usher in a CBDC, Kevin. That's all I'm saying. You lost
me at CBD. What?
Yeah,
We're all going to take
central
CBD.
bank
Yes.
digital currency.
Okay.
That's the drive here,
CBDC.
Kevin. And you will own nothing and pretend to be happy, and that's the way it's going to be.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna ride my e-bike and eat the bugs, and like I'm gonna have a good time. Like,
Oh Jesus! Oh, ah! Ah! So, anyways, I don't know what to say about that. I had more, but probably we should save it for next show.
all right, we can save for next show. We're so someone needs to send Tim like a bag of crickets or something. That's Tim. You're gonna get used to eating the bugs, man.
I am luckily heading into the twilight zone, the end of my life. I will not be stuck with the stupid decisions you kids are making right now.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to have another show talking about like car stuff specifically.
Yeah.
I want to like get into that.
Actually, I should add a
we can cover
caveat.
them in chocolate. Dark Closet of Mind on YouTube says chocolate covered grasshoppers. Yeah, yum.
Unless my carnivore diet pays off and I live to be like 100 and start getting wildly healthy, I will not have to live with the decisions you kids are making. It's a caveat.
Yeah. So we'll keep that in mind.
Good luck with
Tim's
that.
not going to have to worry about any of this stuff. I might have to worry about it. My kids might have to worry about it. Tim's just
all of our kids,
Yeah.
they're going to have to worry about it. They're going to be eating chocolate covered grasshoppers and pretending they like it, training up like murders of crows to like steal. I don't know, what would they steal if there's a central like bank digital currency?
How are they gonna go find cash and gold coins on our behalf if like it's all digital?
Gold. The demand for gold might survive a CBDC.
Yeah, I mean, like it definitely feels more unethical if someone brings like a crow brings me a credit card with someone's name on it. Like I can't just be like, oh, you just found this dollar on the ground. I can't be like, oh no, this is a credit card. No, this is I can't use
the
this.
walnut.
Like they thank you, Crow, but like no, don't bring me credit cards.
All right. I'm liking what I'm hearing here. Guys, I'm going to report back on my whole crow raven experiment to see if I can get some gifts. Honestly, I feel as though they should pay me for installing the solar panels that they're going to use as a recharging station and a thermal lift. But
100%,
perhaps they need more direct encouragement.
You got a good symbiotic relationship going with the crows there already. Like, just build on that. It's gonna be good.
I definitely feel like the ravens are talking to me.
There you go. That is the start of a conversation, Tim.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, folks, have a great night. Take care.